"You bastard, you'll pay for everything you've done. You'll never know peace." Those were the words Natalie hissed through gritted teeth, her eyes burning with hatred during a hearing. I used to think divorce was simple. Two people agree to part ways, sign a few papers, and go their separate directions. But I was wrong. From the day we decided to separate, I understood ending a marriage is sometimes like starting a war without bullets, yet full of emotional wounds, exposed secrets, and a harsh truth about human nature when faced with the line between self-interest and emotion, a war where no one truly wins. Only deep scars remain. Sometimes I wonder, in this fast-paced life, how many of us are living with a secret, a burden we can't share with anyone. I'm Logan, 39, living in Dallas, Texas. I once had a life many dreamed of: a stable job, a nice little home, and a wife I once believed was my soulmate. But then, it all crumbled. Tonight, as Micah, my son, sleeps soundly in the next room, and I sit here, in the living room with only the steady hum of the ceiling fan, I find myself adrift in shattered memories. Perhaps divorce isn't just about ending a marriage certificate. It's a painful transformation, tearing apart all illusions of love, kindness, and even who you are. I once thought I knew Natalie, but it turns out that was just a very small part of who she truly is. Natalie and I met during a university volunteer project. It was a hot summer day, and we were with a group of friends planting trees in a local park. Natalie was radiant then, with her shiny blonde hair neatly tied up and sparkling blue eyes full of enthusiasm. She wasn't afraid to get dirty, always full of energy, and a smile always on her face, making everyone around her feel at ease. Natalie was the soul of every activity, always knowing how to liven up the atmosphere and inspire everyone. As for me, I was a quiet guy, preferring meticulous, silent tasks over lively activities. I chose a quiet corner, diligently tilling the soil, watering plants, staying away from noisy conversations. I was drawn to her brightness, like a moth to a flame. Natalie constantly teased me about being quiet, about always keeping my distance from everyone. She would often secretly put tiny wildflowers in my shirt pocket when I wasn't looking, or draw funny smiley faces on my hand with mud. I would pretend to be annoyed, but deep down, I felt a strange warmth. Unlike other girls who often tried to attract attention with their looks, Natalie approached me with sincerity and a uniquely mischievous charm. She never judged or tried to change me. Instead, Natalie saw in me a sense of peace, a safe harbor she didn't find in other noisy, impulsive guys. She told me I was like a classic book. The more you read, the more interesting it became, the deeper you delved, the more surprises you discovered. I remember her saying, eyes sparkling, "I love your quietness, Logan. It's like a mysterious world I want to explore." It was those moments that made me believe we were meant for each other. Two seemingly mismatched pieces fitting together strangely perfectly. We fell in love passionately. For me, Natalie was my whole world. I spent all my free time with her, listening to stories about the future adventures she dreamed of, and discovering new things with her. Natalie loved me deeply too. She always said I was her peaceful haven, the only person who made her feel safe and truly herself. I still vividly remember what she said the night I proposed. Under a starry sky, "Logan, you are my destiny. I promise to be by your side forever, no matter what happens." That promise, now, echoes in my mind like a curse, a mockery of my own naivety. We got married after 3 years of dating. The wedding was simple but cozy, filled with laughter and blessings from friends and family. I believed I had found my other half. I envisioned a bright future, where we would build our home together, raise good children, and grow old together on a warm armchair by the fireplace, telling each other old stories. I believed our love was strong enough to overcome all challenges, all storms of life. However, married life wasn't always a fairy tale, not always romantic moonlit dates. Differences in personality, small habits we had previously overlooked or even considered charming, now became the cause of conflicts, of simmering cracks. Natalie retained her lively personality, enjoying socializing with friends, noisy gatherings, and distant trips. She wanted life to always have new things, exciting experiences. She always felt suffocated staying in one place for too long. As for me, I still preferred quietness, liked being home, enjoying my own space with familiar books and music. I wanted a calm, stable life, a home that was truly a refuge after the chaos of work. At first, we tried to compromise. I tried to go with her to parties, tried to blend into small talk that held no interest for me. I laughed at jokes I didn't understand, tried to strike up conversations with people whose names I didn't know, even though all I wanted was to find a quiet corner. Natalie also tried to stay home more with me, watching movies, reading books together. But that forced effort gradually wore us both down. I felt exhausted after every gathering, as if I had just wrestled, having to force a smile, a word. Natalie felt bored, frustrated from being home too long. She said she lost her freedom, lost her vitality. Natalie began to complain about me being too quiet, not talking, not socializing with her friends. She called me boring, lifeless, a homebody, lacking ambition. I, on the other hand, felt she was too loud, too carefree, sometimes lacking depth in conversations, and too concerned with superficial things. Small arguments gradually escalated into big fights. Natalie often used harsh words, criticized me, even compared me to other men. Look at my friend's husband, Logan. He's so fun, so outgoing, and has such a brilliant career. Why are you always like a rock? Don't you see you're dragging me down? I chose to remain silent because I knew, every time I countered, things would only get worse, with no way out. My silence, in her eyes, became proof of my indifference, lack of care, disregard for her. It was an endless cycle, a small crack gradually becoming an unfillable chasm. The culmination of these cracks was when Micah was born. I thought that the arrival of our son would mend the cracks in our relationship, would bring us closer, would be an invisible thread connecting two hearts that were slowly drifting apart. I was wrong. Taking care of a newborn was a huge burden, especially for Natalie, a woman who valued freedom and wasn't used to constraints, to sacrifices. She constantly complained about sleepless nights, fatigue, and feeling tied down by our son, by the responsibilities of a mother. She said her life had been ruined by Micah's birth, that she wasn't herself anymore. I was heartbroken to hear those words. I tried to share the burden with her. I stayed up at night to care for our son. I learned how to mix formula, change diapers, soothe him to sleep. I did everything I could for Natalie to rest, for her to have time for herself, so she wouldn't feel isolated. But it seemed all my efforts weren't enough. Natalie became increasingly irritable, cranky, and distant. She often took her anger out on me for the smallest things, from me forgetting to turn off the light in a room to leaving dishes in the sink. I remember one time, Micah had a high fever, crying all night. I stayed up all night to care for him, taking him to the hospital in the middle of the night while it was pouring rain outside. The next morning, I had just managed to get a little sleep when Natalie urged me to get up and go to work. Tiredly, I said, "I'm a little tired. Can you let me sleep a bit longer?" She immediately flared up. "You always only think of yourself. Do you think I'm not tired? I have to go to work too. I have to take care of our son. Do you know I have to work twice as hard to make up for the time I took off for maternity leave?" I remained silent, got up, and went to work, my heart heavy with disappointment and helplessness. I felt like I was fighting this battle alone, and I was slowly running out of strength. Then Natalie began to seek liberation for herself, escaping the constraints of family life, of maternal responsibility. She often sent Micah to her mother's house in another state, sometimes for a whole week or even several weeks. The first time, she said it was because of emotional overload, needing time to recover, to regain energy. I was understanding. I accepted, though I missed our son terribly. I hoped that after resting, she would return with a better spirit, with love for our son. But then it happened repeatedly. In total, she sent our son to her mother's house 4 times within Micah's first year, each time for at least a week, sometimes 2 weeks. I stayed home, still went to work, still missed our son terribly, still carried all the household chores alone. When I asked if there could be another way, for example, hiring a professional nanny, or for me to take some time off work to care for our son, Natalie just snapped, "What do you know? Do you ever understand what it feels like to be a mother? You just talk. Do you think hiring a nanny is easy? Do you think you can take care of our son better than me? Do you have money to talk so easily?" I remained silent again. I didn't want to argue. I thought, maybe she really needed space. I deluded myself that this was just a difficult phase, and everything would be fine, that our love was big enough to overcome everything. Until one day, both of us realized that this marriage could no longer be saved. There were no big arguments, no clear betrayals, only exhaustion, boredom, and an ever-widening distance, a terrifying silence that enveloped us. We sat down to talk calmly, almost coldly, devoid of emotion. Natalie said she no longer felt happy in this marriage, that she wanted to seek a new life, where she could be herself. free to fly. I felt the same. I no longer felt love, no longer felt connected, no longer felt peace in my own home. We agreed to divorce. At first, I thought we would separate amicably, like mature, educated, responsible adults. We would discuss co-parenting, assets, and everything would proceed smoothly, without harming Micah, without impacting his tender psyche. I believed that even if we were no longer husband and wife, we would still be friends, Micah's parents, and we would raise him together in the best possible way. Watching him grow, I believed in the residual kindness in Natalie, in her love for our son. However, when the lawyers appeared, that civility vanished like smoke, giving way to a ruthless war, a battle I never imagined, a war where every ethical boundary was broken. I clearly remember the first day I met my lawyer. She was a sharp-eyed, middle-aged woman named Sarah. I presented everything honestly, including my efforts in caring for Micah, and Natalie's instances of sending our son to her mother's house. I just wanted everything to be resolved fairly, and most importantly, in Micah's best interest. I wanted full custody, or at least joint custody, with a clear, specific visitation schedule. I believed I had enough ability and time to care for Micah, and I could provide him with a stable, loving environment, a peaceful childhood. But Natalie didn't think so. She demanded full custody, and I would only be allowed limited visitation. According to a schedule she arranged, she argued that I wasn't patient enough as a father, that I was too quiet, couldn't provide a dynamic, joyful environment for our son. She said I often immersed myself in my own world, didn't care about Micah's feelings, didn't play enough with him, and was a dry, boring father. Those words were like knives stabbing my heart, piercing through the calm facade I was trying to maintain. I didn't argue back. I simply submitted to the court hundreds of messages, photos, instances where I took Micah to school, cooked for him, told him stories, soothed him to sleep when he had a fever, times I took him to the park, to museums, times I played games with him, read books. And then, my lawyer, Sarah, delved into Natalie's instances of sending our son to her mother's house. That was a secret I didn't want to expose, for fear of hurting Natalie and fearing that Micah would find out. I had tried to hide it, but now it became crucial evidence. Natalie's lawyer, in turn, used the very reasons of emotional overload, prolonged postpartum depression, work and family pressure to prove she was a sensitive mother, deserving of understanding, deserving priority in custody, because she was a sacrificing mother. He never mentioned how I had stayed up all night to care for our son, or how I had tried to support Natalie, how I had taken on all household responsibilities, becoming the sole pillar. He only focused on Natalie being the mother who bore the pain of childbirth, and I being the indifferent man, lacking understanding, only demanding and selfish. I felt like I was being twisted, distorted into a completely different person, a villain in everyone's eyes. The woman who once exchanged vows with me, who was once my soulmate, now spoke of me with the language of a prosecutor, with stony words, full of hatred, full of lies, full of slander. She was no longer the gentle romantic Natalie I once loved. She became a cold warrior, only concerned with protecting her own interests, regardless of any emotions, any memories, any past affection. I wondered, was this truly the Natalie I once loved, or was this her true self? A person I had never truly understood, or had this war transformed her into someone else, someone I couldn't recognize, someone willing to do anything to achieve her goals? Then came the issue of assets. Specifically the house we had been paying off for 6 years. It was the home I had poured my heart into building. Every brick, every patch of garden bore the imprint of our memories. From afternoons I spent planting trees with Micah to nights I alone repaired household items. I suggested selling the house and splitting the money equally. I thought that was the fairest way for both of us to start over. And Micah would also have a sum of money to start a new life, a stable future. But Natalie wanted to keep the house, saying she needed a stable place for our son, that Micah was used to this house. He needed a familiar environment to avoid psychological impact. She argued that changing his living environment would seriously affect Micah's psyche, causing him shock and difficulty adapting to a new environment. I agreed, even though I knew it would be difficult for me to find a new place to live. Having to rent, having to rearrange my life, but I said, then you pay back my share of the house. I had contributed 6 years of mortgage payments, along with a large sum of money for repairs and upgrades, from repainting walls to installing new plumbing and electrical systems, from buying furniture to decorating every small corner of the house. In total, I had spent over $150,000, not including my effort and time. I didn't want to take everything. I just wanted to get back my fair share of what I had put in. Natalie immediately refused bluntly, her eyes full of contempt. You have money. Don't be so calculating with your son. Are you a man or are you that stingy? That statement stunned me, like a splash of cold water. I had money, yes, but I had also worked hard, staying up late and waking up early to earn it. It wasn't money that fell from the sky, and this wasn't being calculating. This was fairness, financial transparency. I had contributed my effort and money, and I deserved to get my share back. She called me stingy, selfish, only thinking about money and not about our son, trying to seize the assets of a single mother. Her lawyer even emphasized that the house was where Micah had strong ties, was his childhood, and I was robbing him of stability, making him suffer, making him homeless. I felt cornered. All my arguments twisted, turned into calculations, coldness, and the indifference of a father who only cared about money. And then, there was the debt. We had a credit loan of nearly $30,000 under both our names. This loan was used to buy furniture, household items, and a large part for Natalie to attend a short multimedia course in New York, a course I had strongly supported her in pursuing, believing it would help her develop her career. I thought we would simply split this debt, half each, because both of us were responsible, but she wanted me to bear it all, because I took a year off work for childbirth and you made me, so this debt is your responsibility. You're a man. You have to take care of the family. That sentence was like another knife cutting into my heart. I once thought I was the one sacrificing, the one who had wholeheartedly supported Natalie to pursue her dreams, to have time to care for our son. Now it turned out I was the one being blamed, accused of forcing her to quit her job, depriving her of her career, making her lose development opportunities. I had worked tirelessly to financially support the family while Natalie was off work. I hadn't complained, hadn't reproached her, because I believed it was the responsibility of a husband, a father. I thought I was doing the right thing, being a solid pillar, but now, those sacrifices were twisted into reasons to blame me, to accuse me of being the cause of all problems. Every hearing, every meeting with lawyers, I felt my heart harden, turning to stone. The woman who once exchanged vows with me under the moonlight, who was once my soulmate, the person I had given all my love and trust to, now spoke of me with the language of a plaintiff, with stony, hateful words, full of lies, full of slander. She was no longer the gentle, romantic Natalie I once loved. She became a cold warrior, only protecting her interests, regardless of any emotions, any memories, any truth. I saw that change in her eyes, in her voice, in her every gesture. I wondered, did she ever truly love me? Or was it all just a play where I was the only one deceived? A play with a painful, brutal ending. As the legal battle intensified, the secrets I tried to bury to protect Natalie were also gradually exposed, little by little, like a festering wound being surgically opened, revealing the disgusting things inside. My lawyer, Sarah, a sharp and resolute woman, tirelessly sought evidence to protect my interests, even evidence I didn't want to present, truths I wanted to keep hidden. She said, "Logan, you have to understand this is a war. If you don't protect yourself, no one will. We have to expose the truth, no matter how painful it is, no matter how much it destroys the other party's image." The first secret was about Natalie's job. She always prided herself on her career, on her senior management position in a large media company. She always told everyone she was an independent, financially self-sufficient woman with a brilliant career, a symbol of success. I felt the same. I was always proud of my wife, always encouraged her to pursue her dreams, and was always willing to support her. But the truth was, in recent years, Natalie had repeatedly encountered serious problems with her work. She was frequently reprimanded by her superiors for unprofessional behavior, for lack of focus, and for serious mistakes in projects. Once, she almost got fired for losing a large company contract, causing hundreds of thousands of dollars in damages. I had to use my connections, even paid a large sum of money to grease the palms of her superiors, to help her keep her position, so she wouldn't lose face in front of colleagues and friends, so her reputation wouldn't be ruined. I had never told anyone about this, for fear she would be humiliated, afraid she would be hurt, afraid she would be judged as a failure. I had tried to shield her, protecting her reputation absolutely, like guarding a shocking secret. But Natalie's lawyer used her very career, the high positions she had achieved, to prove she had sufficient financial ability to raise our son and could be independent after divorce without my support. When my lawyer, Sarah, presented evidence of Natalie's work problems, of how I had helped her. Natalie went ballistic. She sprang up, eyes bloodshot, face distorted with anger, like an animal cornered. She screamed, "You're slandering me. You're trying to ruin me. You're slandering my honor. You're a despicable bastard." I just remained silent. I didn't want this fight to happen like this. I just wanted the truth to be exposed, so Micah wouldn't be deprived of a father who loved him with all his heart, a father who was always willing to sacrifice everything for him. The second secret, and the most painful for me, was about Natalie's attitude towards Micah. Natalie always presented herself as a loving mother, willing to sacrifice everything for her son. She posted many photos of Micah on social media, boasting about his cuteness, his academic achievements, his outings. She called herself Mother of the Year, Super Mom, the perfect mother. But the truth was, Natalie often left me to care for Micah, while she spent time on herself, with friends, on her own hobbies, on all-night parties. She often came home late, didn't ask about our son, and even on nights when our son was sick, she still went out carefree, not caring at all. There were nights when Micah had a high fever, crying non-stop. I called Natalie dozens of times, but she didn't pick up, or only sent curt text replies, "You handle it, I'm busy." I had to take our son to the hospital alone in the pouring rain, while Natalie was still happily out. I had to stay up all night caring for our son, worrying about him to the point of exhaustion. Natalie's lawyer, in turn, used her social media photos, her sweet words about motherhood, to prove she was a wonderful mother, a mother who always showered her son with boundless love, and that I was intentionally trying to sever their sacred mother-son bond, trying to destroy the image of an exemplary mother. I hadn't wanted to present this evidence, for fear of hurting Micah, fearing he would learn the truth about his mother, fearing he would be shocked, would have psychological scars that would be difficult to heal. But I had no other choice. I presented to the court messages, missed calls, photos of me alone, caring for Micah when he was sick, nanny's accounts of Natalie often coming home late, not caring about our son, and even hospital bills I had to pay alone when Natalie was absent. When that evidence was presented, Natalie couldn't refute it. She sat there, pale-faced, her eyes full of anger and resentment directed at me, as if I were her sworn enemy. She whispered through gritted teeth, "You bastard. You'll pay for everything you've done. You'll never find peace." I just remained silent. I only felt extreme pain, profound disappointment. I had once loved her with all my heart, had once trusted her absolutely, had once sacrificed everything for her. But now, it had all shattered, leaving only fragments of lies and betrayal, a horrifying truth exposed. I realized that the woman I once thought was my destiny was a complete stranger, someone who could hide such terrifying secrets, someone willing to trample on love and trust to achieve her goals. The third secret, and the most painful for me, was about Natalie's relationship with another man. During the evidence-gathering process, my lawyer, Sarah, discovered that Natalie had been dating a former colleague throughout the time we were still living together. Even before we decided to divorce, they had intimate messages, photos taken together on trips Natalie claimed were for work or with friends, lavish getaways at luxury resorts. I had always trusted Natalie completely, never suspected her. I had thought our distance was only due to differences in personality, in life, due to work pressure. But now, I realized that distance had another reason, a much more painful one: betrayal. I felt like I had just been punched hard in the gut, a betrayal I had never anticipated, a cruel deception. When my lawyer presented evidence of this relationship, Natalie completely broke down. She couldn't hold back her tears. She screamed, "You've been spying on me. You're a pervert. You have no right to do that. You have no right to destroy my happiness." I said nothing. I only felt an ultimate pain, a deep disappointment. I had once loved her with all my heart, had once trusted her absolutely, had once sacrificed everything for her. But now, it had all shattered, leaving only fragments of lies and betrayal, a horrifying truth exposed. I realized that this divorce was not just a battle over assets or custody, but also a battle over truth, over buried secrets, and over the true nature of human beings when faced with the boundary of self-interest and emotion. It was an unmasking, exposing all the ugliest aspects of a dead relationship, a battle where I had to face the darkest sides of human nature. The legal battle lasted nearly a year and a half, costing me both money and energy. Over $50,000 was gone, only to exchange for endless arguments, exhausting hearings, and restless sleep. Every hearing, every meeting with lawyers, I felt drained of energy, emotionally eroded, like a tree whose roots had been chopped off, leaving only a barren stump. I no longer recognized myself in the mirror. I became cold, hardened, and lost faith in love, in people, in promises, in everything I once believed in. Finally, after so many arguments, so much hurt, so many secrets exposed, we reached an agreement. I agreed Natalie would have primary custody, and I would have visitation with Micah on weekday evenings and alternating weekends, along with half of the holidays and summer vacations. I knew that wasn't what I wanted most. I wanted full custody, to be with my son every day, to care for him myself, but at least I could still be with him, still care for him, still be an important part of his life, which was incredibly precious to me. Natalie kept the house, but had to pay back my contributed share within 6 months. This was a clause I had fought hard to achieve, because initially she didn't want to pay back a single cent. The $30,000 credit loan was split in half, each person responsible for half. I knew it would be difficult for her to pay off this debt, but it was the final fairness I could win after everything. There was no victory, only pain. Neither of us truly won this war. Both were losers, with deep scars etched into our souls, scars that perhaps would never heal, painful memories that would haunt us for life. Natalie lost my respect, and I lost faith in love, in human kindness. The day I left the courthouse, I saw Natalie standing there, her eyes, no longer filled with anger or resentment, held in extreme weariness, a chilling emptiness, as if all emotions within her had been utterly drained. She was no longer the radiant Natalie I once loved, but merely a shadow, a person exhausted by the battle, someone who had lost all the most beautiful parts of herself. I felt the same. I felt like I had just escaped a prison, but carried wounds that would never heal, an indescribable pain, a complete physical and mental exhaustion. Micah ran to hug me, his voice clear and innocent like a ray of sunshine tearing through the dark night in my heart, a reminder that life goes on, and I still had a reason to live. To fight. "Are you coming home with me again, Daddy?" My son's innocent question was like another knife twisting in my heart, but also a soothing balm, a huge source of motivation. I knelt down, hugged him tightly, inhaling the familiar scent of his hair, trying to hold back the tears that welled up. I smiled, a forced smile, my eyes stinging. "Daddy won't be living in the same house, but Daddy will always be right next to you. I'll always be here, whenever you need me. I'll always be the best dad for you. And we'll make so many beautiful memories." Okay, son, I knew Micah didn't fully understand what was happening. He only knew that Mom and Dad weren't living together anymore. And I would have to try my best so he wouldn't feel hurt, wouldn't feel abandoned by the adults' war. I would be a good father, even if I was no longer a husband. I would make it up to him with all the love I had, so he wouldn't feel a lack of family affection, so he could have the most complete childhood possible. I know the road ahead is still long and full of challenges. I will have to face raising my son alone, with financial difficulties, and with emotional scars that won't heal easily, but I believe I will overcome them. I will be stronger. I will grow more, and I will find peace, find happiness, someday. When these wounds have healed, when I have truly accepted and let go of everything, when I have truly found myself again after this brutal war. Divorce isn't just about emotions. It's tearful negotiations, where one person tries to protect their child and the other tries to maintain a shred of fairness. And sometimes, the loser is the child caught in the middle, the tender souls who must endure the consequences of the adult's war, invisible scars that will follow them throughout their lives. My story is a reminder that, behind the doors of marriage, there are many things we cannot see, secrets we never expect, hidden corners we dare not face. Sometimes, an ending is a new beginning, an opportunity for us to face the truth, heal wounds, and find peace. What do you think about this story? Have you ever experienced a similar divorce battle? What secrets were exposed in your life, forcing you to confront harsh truths? Leave your comments below. Share your thoughts and feelings about this story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on other compelling and dramatic stories. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next videos. Goodbye.